don't forget that verse 12. We got the three little parts: be patient be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. The patient in affliction is what he brings up in 14. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. You see, this Christian lifestyle is very, very practical. Are you going to have people who persecute you?
Yep.
You better bet your bottom dollar you're gonna.
Apparently.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. What do you do for those guys? Well, you get mad at them, you cuss at them, you treat them as bad as you can. They did this to me, I'm going to do that. That's the way most Christians sadly live.
Yeah.
You know what we have the joy of doing as we listen, as the Spirit speaks to the church? We have the joy of being patient in affliction, blessing those who curse you, not cursing them back.
I had that happen 3 years ago with the man next door. Him and Rick were at it, and Rick was just livid, and they were calling each other names, and I thought they were going to come to blows. And I heard them, and I went out in the backyard, and immediately something took over in me, and I came out saying with this voice, Rick, go to the shop right now. Go to the shop. And Rick looked at me with his anger, and he suddenly changed, and he grumbled and he grumbled, and he went into the shop. And then I walked out to where the man was standing above us in his yard, and he was ranting and raving on me for half an hour about Rick. And then finally he quieted down, and I just felt coming from me this feeling of, I want peace for you. I don't want anger in you.
Amen.
And it just came from me, from the Lord. And I just stood there. I remember I was in a house coat. I wasn't even really dressed. And because I finally said to him, the wind is getting so cold, I'm chilled, and I'm going to have to go back in the house. But I want you to feel all right. I want, good for you. And finally he stopped, and he thanked me for listening to him.
Praise God.
And he said nobody would listen to me, and your husband wouldn't. And he said, take care of yourself. And I said, I am. And I said, you take care of yourself now. And he said, okay. And then I left, and he left. And he left us alone. But Rick set up a lawsuit. And I told Rick, you can't do this. This is not right. But he felt he had to, and he did, and he tried for a year, but the lawsuit never got off the ground, so he lost $1,000 and got $1,000 back from the lawyers, and just shook his head. And I thought, Lord, I just wish he knew, he didn't have to go through that. He didn't have to do this.
And again, that's the first church, the first body that we get to participate in is that with the husband and wife. See, what a beautiful illustration of that. And that's what a testimony of how much we need each other. So see,
because then I remember going into the shop and listening to him rant and rave. And finally he stopped, because I wasn't going to do anything, just going to let him rant and rave at me about everything. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't turn on Rick, but I knew in my heart it wasn't right what he started doing. That it really is always bless those who persecute you. Bless, do not curse them. And
then so there's a real story from our world today, from our current living lifestyle. But now I want to take us to this moment in history. Let's look at verse 15. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, live in harmony with one another. It's at a time where there's so much pain, so much hurt going on. And our goal needs to be, we are the light of the world, right? Jesus said, you are the light of the world. Why? Because we have Jesus as our energy source, if we'll let him.
Yeah. This man came over to my house last week. Not to my house, but he was out front and he was chopping, and I heard chopping. So I went to the spare window in the bedroom and looked out, and there he was chopping down weeds. And I thought, does he think on our property is his property again? And all of a sudden he turned around and looked at me. He stopped chopping and he came over by my window and started talking to me. And I was like, oh dear, you know, at first I was like, oh dear, I don't want him to chop down those trees, the only trees we have left by the side of the house. And he kept talking, and I would answer a little bit, and then he'd talk, and then I'd answer some more. And he stayed with me for half an hour and finally got it where I was talking back and able to, you know, be a person with him. And then he said, I know your husband has been sick. He did in a really kind voice. And I said, yeah, he has diabetes and he's having, you know, this treatment. And then we talked about my selling the house and his feeling about what I was trying to do and everything. And in the end, he got very quiet and he said, well, I really hope the best for you. I really hope the best.
That's awesome.
And then I said, thank you. And I said, at the very end, I said, and you won't go and chop down my trees, will you?
He must have thought, aren't you listening to me, girl?
I know. And then he turned and looks at me and he goes, those are bushes. You know, they're cypress trees, I'm thinking. And I'm like, you know, please don't. And he just acted like, oh, you ought to let me do that. And I'm just, no. My husband left it. So I think he came over and chopped down the cherry tree that started growing from a seed of his cherry tree. Because this week I found suddenly my cherry tree's gone. But Rick had told me if it doesn't give cherries, we need to chop it down and just give more room to the little oak tree that's growing. Basically, that's what he did. So I'm just not saying anything, man. But Robert saw Rick Saturday night at our gathering, and he had shared with Robert, somebody chopped down that tree. And Rick turned to me and goes, who chopped down that tree? I'm saying, what tree? And then Robert goes, you know, that tree over there against the side. And I said, what? And I acted so dumb. And I said, let's not go there, to Robert. And I just turned to Rick and I changed the subject. And Rick sort of gave me this look and then let it go. I was like, we are not going to find a reason for Rick to be angry at this man.
Again,
Good,
yeah.
good.
Again.